Begin tonight keeping them honest with what looks to be the shape of things to come as the leader of the Republican Party, the self-proclaimed rule of law party, faces a July sentencing date for 34 felony convictions. Increasingly, that means Republicans are attacking a criminal justice system they've long claimed to support, threatening to investigate and defund it, even threatening to defund the entire federal government, all because a jury of 12 Americans did what juries are entrusted to do: listen to evidence and reach a verdict.
We aren't a serious country anymore. We're literally a banana republic. So what does it matter funding the government? The American people don't give a shit.
That's Georgia Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene talking to CNN's Mano Raju. Separately, in a new letter CNN obtained today, House Judiciary Chairman Jim Jordan is proposing to defund federal and state prosecutions targeting what he called, quote, political opponents. And as we reported last week, some of the former president's Senate allies are vowing to bottle up any legislation at all in response to the New York verdict. Now, let's remember, this was a state trial, not a federal one, and there's no evidence the federal Justice Department had any role whatsoever in it, let alone the Attorney General, let alone President Biden. Yet, from the beginning, the former president has, in almost a literal sense, tried to make a federal case out of it, a notion his supporters now fully embrace. House Speaker Mike Johnson, for one. Last week, he said the Supreme Court should get involved. Now he's saying Congress should with all it's got.
Listen, we are the rule of law party. Chaos is not a conservative value, and we have to fight back, and we will, with everything in our arsenal. But we do that within the confines of the rule of law. So what we'll do with our tools that we have in Congress and the House is we'll use our oversight responsibility. And we're going to look at Special Counsel Jack Smith, who we believe is abusing his authority as well. We have the funding streams. We have mechanisms to try to get control of that.
Jack Smith, for the record, has managed to persuade a duly appointed judge to sign off on a search warrant that has yielded troves of highly classified documents with the former president squirreled away at Mar-a-Lago and attempted, according to prosecutors, to move those documents around to avoid detection. Smith has persuaded grand juries to indict Trump for that and also bring charges connected with January 6, all while being legitimately opposed in the courts up to and including the Supreme Court by the former president's legal team. None of that suggests a lack of due process, let alone evidence of wrongful prosecution. To the contrary. Yet here is what Republican governor and vice presidential hopeful Doug Burgum is now saying.
Well, I think what's sad for America is the whole weaponization of the system, and what we're going to see more of this.
He provided no evidence, nor did another man desperately vying to become vice president, Senator Tim Scott.
There's no doubt that this verdict has actually brought unifying our party. Without any question, what we've seen is never Trumpers calling me and saying, Tim, I'm on the bandwagon now. I've seen this two-tier justice system working against the president of the United States. It could work against me, too.
He also provided no evidence of that. As for the system being weaponized against Republicans, not sure what Democratic Senator Bob Menendez feels about that, or for that matter, Hunter Biden. That's the president's son there, arriving today at a federal courthouse in Delaware for day one of his trial on gun-related charges. And here's Democratic Congressman Jamie Raskin today.
Democrats are not out there saying that Hunter Biden's trial is a farce, it's a fraud, it's rigged. We're not attacking the justice system. They do that because of the extraordinary cognitive dissonance that a party which claims to be representing religious piety has wrapped itself around in an adjudicated sexual assailant and fraudster who just got convicted by a jury of his peers for paying $130,000 in hush money to a porn star right after his fifth child was born. That's where their party is.
Well, wherever the Republican Party may be, and we'll talk about it shortly, the leader of it is now gaslighting the public, denying his own very public, very early, very loud foray into politicizing and, yes, weaponizing the criminal justice system.
You famously said regarding Hillary Clinton, lock her up. You declined to do that as president.
I beat her. It's easier when you win. And they all said lock her up. And I felt, and I could have done it, but I felt it would have been a terrible thing. And then this happened to me. And so I may feel differently about it. I can't tell you, I'm not sure I can answer the question. Hillary Clinton, I didn't say lock her up, but the people would all say lock her up, lock her up. Okay.
He said he didn't say it, that the people said it. Well, keeping him honest, he said it a lot.
Tell you what, for what she's done, they should lock her up. She's disgraceful. It's disgraceful. Honestly, it's disgraceful.
Lock her up is right.
You should lock them up. Lock up the Bidens. Lock up Hillary.
So, of course, he's denying he said all that. He ran on that. And in the same interview, he issued another veiled threat about what might happen if he's sentenced to jail time or home confinement for the 34 felonies the jury convicted him of.
I don't know that the public would stand it. I'm not sure the public would stand for it. With a,
if they tried house arrest or
I think it would be tough for the public to take. At a certain point, there's a breaking point.
Joining us now is former Arkansas governor, former Republican presidential candidate Asa Hutchinson. Governor, appreciate you being with us. What does it say as far as the Republican Party is concerned? Being a convicted felon is no longer considered a disqualification for the presidency. And I mean, you are a former prosecutor yourself. Do you believe the federal government is weaponized against the GOP?
Well, I have a high regard for the justice system in America. It is a hallmark of our democracy and the strength of America. I don't like to see it undermined by anyone. And whenever you look at the Republican Party right now, they're in a bind. And the bind is that you've got a presumptive nominee that's going to get the nomination of the party, that's going to the fall election, and he's been convicted of 34 felonies. That's a problem for the Republican Party, and their answer to it is to say they're bogus, that the charges and the convictions are not legitimate. That's a hard case to make to the American public, even though they might see the start of that case in New York as partisan. They have confidence in what the jury determined, and that varies by party, of course, but the polls show that a slim majority of Americans have confidence in what the jury found. And so they're going to sort this through. And we've had mistakes in prosecutions before. Our system has made the corrections that are needed, either through the jury system or through the appeal system. So let it work. Let's don't undermine what is so great about America in this justice system. But the Republicans are in a bind because we have a nominee that's facing felony convictions and an unknown future with the sentencing that's coming up.
You know what happened when former Maryland governor and the current GOP Senate candidate Larry Hogan, he tweeted last week in response to this. He said, I urge all Americans to respect the verdict and the legal process. That was basically blasphemy, according to Trump's campaign strategist, who said that Hogan ended his campaign with that remark. And Lara Trump, who was installed by her father-in-law to run the RNC, said Hogan doesn't deserve the respect of anybody in America. I mean, as a rational Republican like yourself, that's got to be, just sad.
Well, as someone who was trained as an officer of the court to respect the decision of the jury, what Larry Hogan is saying is right. We should respect it. And these jurors, 12 of them citizens, not one of them found Donald Trump innocent. In fact, Donald Trump is batting 0-24 with jurors lately. In the sexual abuse case, it was 12-0 that he committed that. Whenever you look at the criminal case, it was 12-0. So juries speak loudly. They should have respect. And the most important thing is that Larry Hogan is necessary for the Republicans to win the majority of the United States Senate. We need Larry Hogan. Donald Trump, if he's elected president, will need Larry Hogan in the Senate. And so it's very short-sighted to attack him. It just illustrates that they're trying to use the discipline that they have, the whip, to keep people in line and not to counter what the message Donald Trump has given.
Tim Scott was on, we played a clip of him earlier saying that, claiming he's been getting calls from what he described as never-Trumpers who said, they could be coming for me next. I'm now voting for Trump. Do you think that this verdict does bring new voters to Trump? Or do you think it just, it certainly angers supporters of, many supporters of the former president. But do you think it adds voters to his rolls?
Well, it varies, but what you've got to look at is it's clearly strengthened his position with the Republican base. They're standing with him. They see this as unfair. And so you do have that element. but you've got to look at the 6 key swing states and how is this going to impact independent voters and the ones that you have to get on the margin. And so this over the long term can't be healthy for Donald Trump. To me, he's demonstrating that has a fragile candidacy with these felony convictions, with more court proceedings. And the question is, can Joe Biden take advantage of that? And his weakness is difficult for the people to make a choice. If they see Joe Biden as a weak president, what's the choice you have? A convicted felon or somebody they see as weak? And we don't know how that's going to play out between now and November, but that is the challenge that the voters face.
Governor Hutchinson, I appreciate your time tonight. Thank you.